Can we shut that door?
Yeah, I'm good.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here today. We have just released our first round of early vote results. You can see those online at votetravis.com. The Democratic results are released with ballot by mail. The Republican primary results are released without ballot by mail because they are hand counting their votes, but those will be available as they get their returns to us. Today, so far, we've had over 72,000 ballots already cast. We still have about 30 sites that are still open and will be processing voters until the last voter is counted, meaning the last voter that was in line as of 7 p.m. We expect that to be for a few more hours. We have a rowdy crew back there. They're still getting everything ready for central count. It is an exciting day. It's like our Super Bowl around here. So as I said, we still have about 30 sites up that are still processing voters, of voters who were in line by 7 p.m. that are still able to cast their vote. We will have another round of results up around approximately 10:30 p.m. reflecting Election Day votes. And regarding today's turnout, we mostly heard really positive accounts of very seamless and normal voter experiences. We were made aware of a data issue this morning that impacted about 1% of registered voters. Not all of those registered voters attempted to vote today. Some had voted early, some did not vote, but it was about 1% that there was a data issue this morning impacting some voters in Travis County. When our team was made aware of that issue, they put a solution into place. It was resolved on our end by about 10:30 a.m. There were some remaining outstanding individual issues that were related to voter registration, and those issues were handled by the voter registrar's office on a case-by-case basis. But overall, like I said, most voters had a positive experience, and we're looking forward to issuing some more results later this evening.
Generally in the past, you know, it's been like several times throughout the night where like numbers have been dumped. Why 10:30 to do the run tonight for the election?
Yeah, we estimate based on where the polls are right now, how many sites we still have open, how many sites have completed voting, and our estimate of when those sites that are already closed get their site closed down, get their return their information back to us, and that information is electronically tabulated. That we'll have our next round around 10:30 p.m.
But to be clear, that's not different than y'all have done it in years past.
No.
Can you talk a little bit about specifically what that data issue was?
Yeah, the specific data issue was related to certain precinct boundaries and precinct assignments of, again, less than 1% of voters. Those voters became detached from their assigned precinct, so when they showed up to vote, their name was there, but they were not assigned to a precinct, which meant they weren't assigned to a ballot style, which meant they couldn't cast their vote. We instructed voters if they were able to wait while we put the solution into place. Some voters were able to do that. Other voters that were not able to wait either voted provisionally or came back later in the day to vote. And again, that solution was in place by about 10:30 a.m. on our end. There were some additional outstanding issues that were handled on a case-by-case basis with the voter registrar's office with our tax assessor collector.
When you said that, are you speaking about the reports that Republican voters were not able to vote today? Because that was pushed out as well. They said due to an update on early voter registration rules that took place between early voting and election day.
Yeah, that was the data issue. There are a number of data syncs that take place in between early voting and election day that regularly occur around voter registration information to make sure that the voter rolls are the most accurate. It was not party specific. Voters on both sides were impacted. I got calls, and our call center got calls from voters trying to vote in both the Democratic and the Republican Party that were experiencing that issue. And because we have a joint primary, the machines are all together. It's one set of machines. It's one check-in process. It's one voter roll. So it was not party specific.
And one more thing here. I know there's a lot of concern about mail-in ballots and whether they will be rejected or sent back. How's that working this year?
Yeah, mail-in ballots are running pretty smoothly. I think the biggest confusion in the primary is that sometimes people who are attempting to vote by mail do not select a primary. So they have to select either a Democratic or a Republican primary ballot. If a voter does not select one, then their application may be rejected if it's not able to be cured ahead of the timeline. So I think that was the number one reason we had for rejection this year, which was different than in previous years where we had rejections based on changes in the ballot by mail process. So I think the voter education has worked. People are including their driver's license number, the last four of their social security number to make sure they're eligible to vote by mail. But most of the rejections we had this cycle, I believe, were tied to voters not selecting either the Democratic or the primary ballot.
This is for sure the Republicans been hand counting. Just explain why they decided to do it. Any issues with that?
No. So the ballots were transported this morning over to the Republican hand counting site about 6:15 a.m. They are still counting their ballots. They had, I believe, let me check my number right here, 1,433 ballots to hand count. They are still in that process. Just to remind people, it's not one ballot goes in the yes pile or the no pile. It is every ballot has to be counted by every race, every candidate, and separated by precinct so that election results can be returned. So it's a pretty extensive process. They're still going through it right now. As last I've heard, we have not had an update on their estimate of when we expect returns by. Legally, they have to be done have completed the counting of the ballots by 7 p.m. tomorrow. They have 36 hours to count their ballots, and they're still in that process.
Are you able to compare this year's amount of voters compared to in previous years? Have you seen a decrease or increase?
Yeah. In terms of raw numbers, we increased over 2012. We are below 2016, which was a kind of a higher turnout year, in 2020, which was one of the most historic turnout years. So in terms of raw numbers, we're, again, increasing year over year. We're pretty similar to the November constitutional amendment election, where we had about 144,000 voters, and I think we'll end pretty close to that today.
What's the process going to be like for those provisional ballots? How are you ensuring that folks make sure that those do get counted and are safely being accounted for?
Yeah, we have a whole process related to the provisional ballots and our ballot boards that receive those ballots and then do the counting of those, and we can follow up in detail with what that process is. And I don't have the exact numbers on provisional ballots for today yet. The data thing this morning, we were notified early this morning, probably around 7:45, 8 a.m. We were able to isolate the problem by about 8:30 and start pushing out the solution about 9 o'clock. The data lag between pushing out the solution and the solution syncing and updating to all the machines was about the last hour and a half. So we were informed of the issue around 7:45, 8 o'clock. We isolated it around 8:30, put the solution in place around 9, and then it was fully implemented by about 10:30.
Was that across all of the polls or just?
Yes, that was across all the polls. Some took a little longer. They were closer to the 10 p.m. Some poll books updated earlier, closer to when we initially rolled out the solution, but it was around 10:30 a.m. And again, there was a subset of those that had to be resolved on a case-by-case basis by the voter registrar throughout the day.
Could you?
That was one issue altogether, and we were able to resolve the majority of it, but there was a subset of that group that we were not able to resolve in our solution, and so they resolved that on a case-by-case basis.
Could you give us a percentage of how many registered voters in the county were able to show up to the polls today?
Yeah, how many showed up today? I think it was like 7 or 8%. Altogether, we're at about 15. We're just over 15% turnout, and we had about 7 and some change for early vote. So we about doubled. Early voting was 69,000 voters, and today so far we've had 72,000 voters.
And projected, you said you'll expect about 140.
Yeah, altogether right now we're sitting at 141,720 right now, and there's, again, when I came up here there was about 30 sites still open. Yeah. Any other questions? That was it? Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Can we get your title one more time?
Yeah, Travis County Clerk.
They're just hand counting the now, correct?
Yes, 1,433 of them. They are hand counting their mail ballots. The Democratic ballots are being electronically tabulated.
You said 1,433.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question for you. On the line, are we able to see direct demographics of like young voters, Democrat voters, or Republican voters who showed up today?
Not the demographics, but we might be able to get those for you if you connect with Victoria. We might be able to get a report. And then in terms of Democratic and Republican, you can see who turned out today.